Hello and welcome back to another video on the channel by me, the Wise James. This is Pope's Politics edition, so this week I'm just reviewing Prime Minister's question times, having my say to what they're saying and reacting essentially. Will be a weekly thing that I will react to everything they do in PMQs and make a video about it, because some people don't watch it, some people don't really understand what they're talking about, and sometimes they just have an emotional hissy fits at each other, and I like to get to the bottom of it. So now I don't watch the entire of Prime Minister's question times, if I'm honest, although sometimes I might. It is mainly going to be the Prime Minister and the opposition, which is the leader of the Tory party, debating their things, and I will let the SNP have their say, and the few people after the Tory party leader, so that'll be like Farage probably, and the Lib Dem people, fucking, what's he called? I can't remember what he's called. The lesser parties anyway. So here we go. This is a
and twang on the heart. Mr. Speaker, last Friday, Laura attended my Sharnford constituency. She told me of the tragic death of her 6-year-old, energetic, loving son, Talon, from a brain tumour. All that she asked, Mr. Speaker, is that I raise this matter nationally, and I'm doing that now. But I'd like to go one step further. Would the Prime Minister agree to arrange a meeting for Laura and the brain tumour support group known as Angel Mums to meet with the relevant healthcare minister to discuss brain tumour research?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for doing what he was asked to do, which is raising this case here. The loss of a child is simply unbearable, and I think most of us, including myself, simply wouldn't know how we would be able to react. And I think the whole House will want to send its deepest condolences to Laura and to all of Talon's family and friends. I will happily make sure that the meeting that he requests takes place, so we can reassure that we are committed to supporting life-saving and life-improving research, and doing all we can to improve how we prevent, detect, manage and treat cancer. Thank you.
Andrew Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many people in Peterborough, I am passionate about tackling low pay and insecure work, especially for young people. Next month, many of my constituents will receive a welcome boost in their pay packets due to the increase in the national minimum wage. Can I thank the Prime Minister for ignoring the voices on the opposite benches who continue to oppose our plans to make work pay? And can I urge him to go further and faster in delivering our plan for change for working people?
Well, I thank him. He's a superb job for Peterborough, and we're proud that our employment rights bill is tackling the cost of insecure work, and we're delivering that pay rise for 3 million of the lowest paid. We know the Leader of the Opposition opposes all that. She thinks the minimum wage is a burden and that maternity pay is excessive. It's the same old Tories. They opposed the minimum wage in the first place. They've learned absolutely nothing.
I would like to point out at this point that not one person in this room cares about the minimum wage, about people, because we have a different minimum wage for people who are under the age of 25, I think, or 21, than we do for adults. So let's have a look. So 18 to 20-year-olds is £8.60. What about a 17-year-old? £6.40 an hour. So, right. So, let me just point something out to you all, right? Okay? It is illegal to pay someone differently based on their wage, right? That is a breach of the Discrimination Act, to pay someone differently based on their age, their ethnicity, their sex, their gender, these sorts of things, So what they did was introduced a different law that made it legal to do something illegal to people who are underage. And nobody ever says a damn thing about this, because, you know, you get past 21 or you get to the age where you actually qualify for the minimum wage and you stop caring. But realistically, everyone under the age of, 21 or 18 isn't being paid a legal wage. They are being paid an illegal discriminatory wage that is paid less to them because of age discrimination. Now, there are some people in the country who will argue that this is because, you know, once you've paid into the system, you deserve the full benefits of the system, blah, blah, blah. There are 20 and 30-year-olds who have never had a fucking job in their life. And they walk into a job and get full-time wage, minimum wage. When I was growing up, working full-time between the ages of like 16 and 21, there was various people around me who qualified for working tax credits because they had a child or they were over the age of 25, and they were getting an extra £3,000-4,000 a year compared to me. Bearing in mind, I'm working in call centres and I'm the best performing agent statistically. You know, best handling time, most calls, best customer service. You know, very rarely was I not the best performing agent. Yet everyone around me was earning £3,000-4,000 more than me per year simply because I was younger than them. For 5 years. And then they changed it. And then they changed it again. But that was my point. Age discrimination is against the law. These people don't care about the minimum wage. Otherwise, they would pay 16 and 17-year-olds a fair wage. They don't care about the minimum wage. They care about looking like they care about the minimum wage, okay? I just wanted to point that out.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Beryl.
And here's the dining room.
Bloody adverts.
Speaker, the Chancellor claimed that her budget was a once-in-a-Parliament reset. So why are we having an emergency budget next week?
We know the answer to this because Donald Trump's forced the hand of the UK to change our defence spending from 0.5% to 0.7%. So all these MPs have decided that we're going to attack disabled people instead of removing our free food, free drink and accommodation that the taxpayer spends nearly, 20-30 billion every year on us for. Instead, we're going to attack disabled people. That's what everyone in this room has decided. You know, instead, we're going to attack disabled people, then lose our free rich people benefits. Because the rich people's benefits in this country far outweigh any amount of benefits that disabled people get. It's like the people in this room alone, you're talking each one of them probably cost the taxpayer nigh on £250,000 to £500,000 every year. Everyone in that room. At least. And that's in free benefits. That's not wages. That's free accommodation. That's free food. That's free drink. That's expenses. They don't need to live in the capital and go there once a month or once a week for a meeting. This can all be done digitally. We can turn Westminster into a tourism attraction and let people pay to go walk around it. And these can all fucking sit and do their jobs in front of a screen like everyone else in the country instead of getting all this free shit. Fuck them. Anyways, carry on.
Mr. Speaker, we have delivered record investment into this country, had 3 interest rates cut in a row, and wages are going up faster than prices, which is a massive cost of living boost. That's after only 8 months, after 14 years of absolute failure. What do they do? Interest rates 11%, massive 22 million black hole in the economy. They crashed the economy.
It's a rare verbal slip-up from him. He doesn't make many of them after his years of lawyer practice.
Rebuilding Britain.
Mr. Speaker, he knows why we're having an emergency budget, because since the last one, since the Chancellor delivered her budget in October, growth is down, borrowing is up, and she has destroyed business confidence. Does the Prime Minister now regret raising taxes on business?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the OBR will present their numbers. There'll be a spring statement next week. But, Mr. Speaker, she still hasn't. We've got record investment into this country. Interest rates have been cut, and she talks about national insurance. We had to fill the 22 billion black hole that they left. We've invested in the NHS, in schools and public services. We're pressing on with planning, with infrastructure and regulation. But I understand the Leader of the Opposition is straight talking, so perhaps she can help us with this. Is she going to reverse the next increase? If not, what's the point? If so, what other taxes is she raising to fill the hole? One way or the other.
Do you know what it is? It sounds stupid, right? But if there's a massive financial debt on the country, I haven't done the numbers on this, and I know it's going to sound ridiculous, but surely it could be the case that for every £100 you earn, everyone in the country, every business, every person, every £100 you earn, you pay an extra penny, or an extra 5p, right? That way, every single person is equally having a tax rise. The rich have an equal tax rise, the poor have a equal. You have to obviously tax held assets, not just like I don't know. It's complicated, obviously, but there has to be a way. Like, I'm sorry, but you could tax the rich just an extra 5%. You could make an extra tax bracket. What's the highest tax bracket in the UK? Let's have a look. Highest tax bracket UK. Obviously 60%, is it? 45 additional rate. Yeah, so over 125 grand, yeah, that is reasonable. But why don't we have like over 500 grand at 50%? If you earn over £500,000 a year, you should pay 50% tax. If you earn over £1 million a year, 55%. If you earn over £5 million a year, 60%, and leave it there. That's literally the black hole plugged. That is the spending problem resolved for the next 5 years. And the only reason these politicians won't do it is because they get it in the neck from the rich people at, their posh dinners and charity dues. Essentially, they don't live around normal people like us. Like, it's a different world. Some of them, obviously, their families are normal people and partners or whatever, but they live in a different world where businesses try and stick their nose up their backside to get what they want to make more money, and these guys let them. Essentially, that's the way I see it. They can call me wrong, but I'm not.
You're in government.
Speaker, the only black hole is the one that he is digging.
Yeah.
That's such bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, but Labour left in 2010 the UK with a large national debt of probably around 500 billion, 600 billion, something like that. A very large debt. And in fairness, the reason I fell out of happiness with the Labour Party is because they dragged us into war with George Bush over some oil. It was nothing to do with, anything else. It was just oil. And then Gordon Brown sold all of our gold to China, which China has then used to become the technological superpower of the planet, which we could have done. But, Gordon Brown didn't see that because he just wanted his backhander to increase his spending potential for his property business, which is why, to be honest, I don't sound stupid, but after Gordon Brown sold the gold reserves to China, for the next 10 years, all I saw was Gordon Brown property signs popping up everywhere. Call me crazy. I'll go get me tinfoil hat, I've literally got one. Call me crazy, but the timing was questionable on all of it. My eyes do not deceive me. I'm sorry, they don't. So, that's why I actually fell out with Labour. But my point was, they left with 600 billion debt, right? The UK's debt currently is about, 2.5 trillion? That's before we talk about obligated future expenditure, like future things that we're obligated to already spend for, because that's not included until the budget comes around. So let's have a look. Current UK debt, 2.778 trillion. So the Tories have literally cost this country £2 trillion in 14 years. These guys are crying and whinging about 22 billion, right? These fools are whinging about 22 billion when her party that she represents has cost this country 2 trillion. And what will happen is there'll be loads of economics people out there who will think, well, you've got to have a deficit to grow the private sector, to grow the tax receipts. And I would argue that was perfectly legitimate until the private sector started operating in the public sector and benefiting from the public sector. So what the private sector has been doing as a result is now siphoning the resources and funding of the public sectors and also working in the public sector. So the public sector needs to work in the private sector to complement that and balance it out. But this country needs a budget with a profit. This country has not made 1 penny on a budget profit since probably 2001? 1989. There's been one budget in my 34-year life where this country has made a profit. Now, can you imagine a company that for 30 years didn't make a profit? What sort of state they would be in? And this is the problem. They're talking about this £22 billion black hole when her party has left the country with a £2 trillion national debt. What? This 20 billion is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. This is why I could never understand people banging on about immigration all the time, because yes, it's a problem, but the reason it's a problem is because we don't have any money, and it's causing problems with money and resources, money, and the money issue is because of the national debt. And the national debt issue is because these twats can't pull a profit out of a budget, because they think you have to have a deficit every year to grow the private sector. Basically, the public in this country, the taxpayer, is being siphoned by the private sector so that the private sector can exploit them with higher prices for the products and services they need, like water, electric, gas, and energy. And internet. Like, it's beyond belief how everyone in the UK is exploited at every turn. Every fucking turn. And I'm sick of it. I'm fucking sick of it, me. I don't know about everyone else. I'm literally sick of it. I don't understand how they can sit here every week talking about these minuscule amounts of money. Massive to us, but in regards to the size of a country, minuscule amounts of money, when there's a £2 trillion black hole the Tories left us. And Labour left us a £600 billion black hole, although granted 200 billion of that was from the previous Conservative government to them when they came into power in 1989, 1990, something like that. Yeah. So they don't care about the money. They don't care about the black hole, because if they cared about the finances, they'd be sorting out the national debt. But they're not. I've been banging on. I've literally been screaming about this national debt for 10 years. 10 years. And none of them seem to just care. When that is the problem. The UK is fucked because of the national debt. Imagine if we didn't have a £2.8 trillion debt, right, every year. All that money we're paying on interest, all that money we're paying to the debt, we would have free to use to upgrade the UK's roads, the railways, the hospitals, to invest in the police, to be able to actually enforce the law rather than pick and choose which crimes they can actually deal with. It's ridiculous what's going on in this country. Come on. Come on, everyone. It's fucking ridiculous.
He's shown absolutely no regret, but everybody knows the Chancellor has made a mistake. Yes. That is why they're having an emergency budget. Yes. Later today, Conservatives will vote to exempt hospices, pharmacies, and care providers from her national insurance rise. Will he, at the very least, support exempting these vulnerable services from his jobs tax?
Prime Minister.
I noticed she didn't say they're going to reverse the national insurance rises. It's exactly what she wants all the benefits, but they can't say how they're going to pay them. She carps from the sideline, but can't make her mind up whether she supports or doesn't support national insurance rises. We've made provision for hospices, we've made provisions for charities, but we had to secure the economy. We had to fill the £22 billion black hole that they disgracefully left.
You know, I do get it that they've got to fill this black hole because they've got to balance the budget out. I honestly believe they are trying their best to try and pull out a profit because they know they can use it as like a scorecard against the Tories for the next 10 years, because the Tories didn't pull a profit ever in my lifetime. They haven't pulled a profit since like 1989 on a budget. So if Labour can actually manage a profit on a budget, that's a big win for this country. Just to knock 1 penny off the debt. 1 penny would be a win. So I understand Starmer said months ago he's going to have to make difficult decisions and people aren't going to like it, and I get it. That's fine. But one of them decisions should have been to remove the free food, free drinks, free accommodation and free expenses that everyone in that fucking room gets from the taxpayer. Because if the UK is not in a very good, secure and safe state, which it isn't, they're not doing the jobs properly. Therefore, they are negligent in a public office. They should have their privileges removed and revoked until such a time as they are proven responsible enough to actually be warranting of rewarding, essentially. Call me crazy, but I would rather reward performance than complacency.
Mr. Speaker, he hasn't made these provisions. He keeps talking about budget benefits. Unemployment is not a benefit. Businesses closing are not benefits. I asked him whether he would exempt hospices, even children's hospices, from the jobs tax? He did not answer that question. His MPs know that this could affect end-of-life care. So I will ask the same question again.
I don't like how Kemi, she's always trying emotional manipulation. She's always trying to make him out to be this bad, evil Dracula who's trying to kill innocent elderly people or suck the blood out of people in hospitals or steal lollipops off children. She can't just tell the truth. She has to try and spin a lie and emotionally manipulate other people into backing her. Rather than having honest, decent policies and people wanting to support them, she tries to trick the public with this emotional, manipulative bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, but she's not fit for she shouldn't be standing where she's standing doing this. It's a disgrace to my country that this can happen. She's a smart woman. She can do better. She can literally do better.
Will he exempt hospices from paying his jobs tax?
Make the most of your annual pension allowance with £100 to £3,000 cash back when you open.
Mr. Speaker, we've already invested £100 million for adult and children's hospices, an additional £26 million in funding through the Children's Hospices grant, but we can't get away with what we were doing in that budget, the root cause, which was fixing the economy they left so badly damaged, a £22 billion black hole. Perhaps you start the next question with an apology.
Mr. Speaker, I remember when he made...
Her party owes me an apology. In fact, they owe everyone in this country an apology for what they've done, but they won't apologise. The same reason why the police don't apologise when they mess up. It's an admittance of guilt. And the truth is, the best humans do apologise when they've done something wrong, because you have to admit when you've done something wrong and then rectify your mistake. If you don't do that, you're not a good human, because you think you don't have to apologise to people. When you do have to apologise when you do something wrong, especially if you're paid to do a job and you let those people down, you should apologise to them. Like if you leave the country with a £2 trillion debt, they should literally be on their hands and knees begging for this country's forgiveness. But here they are, trying to emotionally spin themselves to be the saviours of the problem they created themselves. Like, you could not write this shit. This is what I mean when it's a pantomime. This isn't real. This is like, it's all fake bullshit.
They want me to answer questions, then we can swap sides. Yeah! I remember when he...
That was Starmer's line against Boris Johnson that she's just used against him, which is why there was that, ooh, it was about 5 years ago, maybe. Yeah, Starmer said it to Boris when there was calls for election after Partygate. I do like it when someone uses their own words against them. I find it hilarious. People do it to me all the time.
He made that announcement. He's forgotten, because the money he's referring to for hospices is for buildings. It is not for the salaries hit by the jobs tax. As St Helena Hospice in Colchester said, we cannot use this funding for salaries, which is where we need urgent help. Why is the Prime Minister not listening to hospices?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've already set out the position in relation to hospices. She says that she wants to swap sides. I mean, heaven forbid. After 14 years of breaking everything, we're getting on with the job of fixing it, and all she can do is cart from the sidelines with absolutely no policy.
She hasn't got any policies. Nigel Farage doesn't have policies. This is what I mean. These people are supposed to be coming up with good ideas to solve the country's problems. And instead, they just bitch and moan at each other and gossip like little children in high school on the playground. It is embarrassing. I'm sorry, but they make our country look weak in front of the whole world. This is embarrassing. For me personally, it's embarrassing.
Mr. Speaker, winter fuel payments have been snatched. The jobs tax is hammering everyone from business to charities. The Chancellor promised a once-in-a-Parliament budget that she would not come back for more. And in that budget, she said there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax thresholds. Ahead of the emergency budget,
there would be no freeze on the income tax threshold. There would be a freeze. What was that?
More. And in that budget, she said there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax thresholds.
There would be no extension on the freeze of income tax thresholds. So there was a threshold on the income tax. There was a freeze on the thresholds of income tax, and that wasn't going to be extended. So they were going to stop income tax from staying the same rate. Essentially, that's what that would translate to. That they was going to stay the same rates for income tax. Jargon sometimes, you know, when you work in a job for so long, you end up saying certain anagrams and jargon that nobody else in any other sector understands. Like, politics is no different. Like, say if I was on the phone to a person who didn't understand computers, they probably wouldn't understand what I meant when I was talking about technical stuff with a computer. And politics is the same.
Ahead of the emergency budget, will he repeat? Mr. Speaker, ahead of the emergency budget, will he...
Obviously, I'm guessing that. I'm not 100% sure. So I have to try and work it out.
Will he repeat the commitment that she made?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she's got such prescriptive questions, she can't actually adapt them to the answers that I'm giving. I mean, Mr. Speaker, I think she now calls herself a Conservative realist. Well, I'm realistic about the Conservatives. The reality is they left open borders and...
That's called a pivot. A political pivot.
She was the cheerleader. They crashed the economy. Mortgages went through the roof. The NHS was left on its knees, and they hollowed out the armed forces. This government has already delivered 2 million extra NHS appointments, 750 breakfast clubs, record returns of people who shouldn't be here, and a fully funded increase in our defence spending. That is the difference that a Labour government makes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lady came to see me recently who needed help. She had a disability. It meant that her children have to help her cut up her food. They have to help her wash beneath the waist. They have to supervise her as she goes to the toilet. Under the Tory welfare system, we were able to get that lady on PIP. Under the Prime Minister's new proposed system, she will get zero. Nothing. And after 14 years of the Tory government, and many of us wanting to see the back of them, can the Prime Minister answer one question? What was the point if Labour are going to do this?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've lived with the impact of a disability in our family through my mother and brother all my life. I do understand the human impact of this, but the current system is morally and economically indefensible.
The current system is morally indefensible already, and they're making it more morally indefensible by trying to exclude more disabled people from being qualifying. This is how bad it is, right? This is going to be crazy, okay? So I've been held on the Mental Health Act, as some of you will know, when I was really mentally unwell. And my PIP happened to run out when I was under the Mental Health Act, and nobody helped me with my form. They only gave me 2 weeks to get it in time, and I couldn't get all the stuff that I needed to get a new claim sorted because I was held on the Mental Health Act. I couldn't even leave the ward, and I was being forced medication against my will, so I was literally like sedated in a bed most of the day. I could barely move, let alone do a PIP form and assessment. Nobody in the ward helped me, so I didn't qualify for PIP for about 2 years. Nobody helped me. There was nobody helped me with it. There was no one, and I was told I didn't qualify. I was literally held under the Mental Health Act in a psychiatric ward, so unwell that my human rights had been stripped away, and I was being forced an injection up my arse every fucking week or 2 weeks, whatever it was, being treated like a fucking science experiment. But apparently I wasn't unwell enough for PIP. Now, there is the case that once you spend such a long time in hospital, your benefits do decrease because your costs are covered, your food, your accommodation and things. So you do lose some of your benefits, I think, after a while, especially a PIP. But I'm not talking about this situation. You also then have to obviously pay for your own taxis to go and see your child. The ward doesn't pay for these things. And if they do, people just take the piss because it's 40 quid a taxi and they just get one every day. There was sometimes I was on a ward in Gateshead, which is closed down now actually, at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and there was more people on the ward than should have been on the ward. It was a 10-man ward, and there was sometimes 12, 13, 14 people, right? So when it was tea time, lunchtime at night, if you were last or close to the back of the queue, you weren't getting a hot meal. You were getting sandwiches because all the food was gone. There wasn't enough food for everyone. There literally wasn't enough food for the patients. That's how bad it was under the Tories. Literally, and I just don't understand how everyone in this room has gone, yeah, we'll attack disabled people, we'll do that. And then they're all sitting there getting free food, free drinks, free accommodation, and free expenses every day of their life. But no, we'll attack disabled people. It just... Nah, they're making an enemy out of people they don't want to make an enemy out of, I'm telling you.
And we're right to reform it. And nobody should be defending the broken status.
I actually agree with Starmer. It is broken. It needs fixed. You've got people pretending that they shit themselves and piss themselves and wearing nappies to go to their appointments and then getting points when they shouldn't actually get them. But then you've got people like that person there who are perfectly entitled, who then get disqualified when they do then should qualify. And it's ridiculous how if someone actually does want to go to work, by the very fact of trying to get work, the government could claim, oh, well, if you're well enough to try and apply to a job, then you obviously don't need PIP, you obviously don't need to be on benefits, and then you lose all your money, you'll be on 20% of the money, and it might be the case that you can't work, or you couldn't do that job, but you wanted to try, and now you can't get the benefits back because the government will use that against you, saying, you tried to work, you proved you could work, even though you might have only done a week, and then it fell apart. So there's literally they kind of entrap disabled people onto disability benefits, where, especially if you've got children, are you really going to run the risk of losing like 80% of your child's resources for food and clothes and shoes? Really? You're going to risk that just because of a societal, stigma? Like, I don't give a fuck what people think about me. Like, try living as a schizophrenic and get back to me. Go fuck yourself, right? You hear voices every day of your life. Most of you would end up in a padded room. Never mind do what I've done. So I don't accept being compared to some dollwaller who's never had a job in their life when I'm a schizophrenic who's got severe disabilities. I just don't accept it. You cannot compare me to them. You cannot compare a disabled person to some dollwaller. And it baffles me. That some people who work, they struggle so hard, and they end up attacking the disabled people and taking out on people who are less of or lower than them in some forms because, this societal bullshit. It's the rich who are fucking everyone over. I'm sorry, it's not the disabled people. It's not some people on the dole. I know the system needs reformed and people are fucking it over, taking advantage, but that's always been the case. That will always be the case. There will always be organised criminals trying to take advantage of the benefit system, because if they can find a system that will trick it, they get infinitely paid for doing nothing. There's loads of gangs that have been caught trying to trick the benefit system. Even recently with PIP and the COVID scandal, loads of people tried. It's always going to be the case. So we need constant reform to fill these black holes, but there needs to be exceptional consideration for each case, and that isn't the case because they don't have the resources and funding to be able to do that, because the £2 trillion national debt. Back to that again.
Quo. We are proceeding on three principles: that if you can work, you should work. If you need help into work,
if you can work, you should work. But if you can work and you want to work and you should work, but you can't hold down a job because you say you're a schizophrenic who has sometimes bad days where the voices are trying to get you to kill people or trying to get you to hurt yourself or telling you to do stupid things. You can't really sit there taking calls in a call centre trying to fix someone's broadband when some voice in your head is trying to say this evil, horrific, evil shit, and you have to distract yourself with music and games or other things normally. I'm sorry, but people need to understand that disability is not just someone in a wheelchair. It's not just someone who can't work. The problem with people on PIP and things is they don't actually have the chance to try and work without losing what little they have. Literally, trying to work will land 90% of disabled people in destitution, where they can barely afford to eat, they can barely afford to pay for electric and gas, all because they were born with a disability, and that's not fair. That's just not how that's not how the society is going to be built or will be built. But it needs reform. I agree with it needs done, but I think they should be taking the free food, drink, expenses and accommodation off them MPs first. We don't need to spend 20-30 billion on all these fuckers having free stuff every year. I'm sorry, we don't. They need to earn it like every other twat.
The state should help you, not hinder you. And if you can never work, you must be supported and protected. They are the right principles, but we can't leave the current system as it is.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks on Ukraine and Gaza? And can I also pay tribute to Group Captain John Paddy Hemingway and all our heroes from the Battle of Britain? I know that members across this House will, like me, have heard from GPs, dentists, community pharmacists and care homes who are all deeply worried about the impact of the national insurance rise on the services they provide to patients. That's why the House of Lords passed a Liberal Democrat amendment to exempt NHS and care providers. That amendment comes before this House this afternoon, but we're hearing worrying reports that the Prime Minister will order Labour MPs to vote against it. Will the Prime Minister reassure this House and patients across the country that these reports are not true?
Prime Minister.
Can I start by pointing out that because of the changes we made at that budget, we were able to put record amounts of money into our National Health Service. And vitally important that we...
I would like to point out that every single year the NHS has record amounts of new money because every year the budget increases. Apart from under the Tories where they half the budget increase every year, so they could still claim it was a budget increase and it wasn't a cut. But what they did was cut the budget increase because these people try and be smart about the things they do. Like Richie Sunak, right, said he was going to lower the national debt and then a few weeks later changed his wording to mean lower the national debt we were creating, not the national debt we had. Okay? They try and be very tricky with their words. They try and trick people with words all the time. And I am one of these people who is not so easily tricked with words. I trick myself with words more than other people trick me. I tell you. So, when he said this...
Because of the changes we made at that budget, we were able to put record amounts of money into our National Health Service.
So that's it's technically a lie, but not a lie. It's called a truthful lie, where you use the truth to tell a lie. So the truth is they were able to put more money into the NHS than before because they essentially attacked disabled people and other stuff, you know, elderly people, and winter payments. Made farmers pay inheritance tax like everyone else, which seems reasonable. So then he claimed to make record investments in the NHS, but the NHS had a record new level of investment every year, and every year it does have a new record of investment because every year its budget increases. So every year it has a new record of investment. These two parties play the public like fools. They don't always act like enemies. Sometimes they work as a team to trick us. And this is one of those moments where they're playing us all for fools. Really is. They're playing us for fools. There's been record investments in the NHS every single year for decades because the population grows and the money required to sustain it grows. That's not a brag. He's using a standard fact that applies every year as if it's something he's done that's magical. Well, it's not. Okay? Please don't do that, Starmer. Right? Do better.
And vitally important that we did so. And it isn't right to simply oppose the measures we had to take to raise the money and at the same time say, as the Honourable Gentleman does, that he wants the benefits of the increase in funding to the NHS. The two can't sit together. We have already invested an additional £3.7 billion of funding into social care, including £880 million to increase the social care grant. So we are taking steps. But the basic point remains, which is we can't make the investment into the NHS if we don't raise the money. And you can't simply oppose any raising of money and at the same time welcome the money into the NHS.
Sir Ed Davey.
He's right, like.
Disappointed by that reply, and I hope he and the Chancellor will think about taking money from the NHS ahead of the spring statement and reverse it. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to turn to the issue.
What? Did he just suggest removing money from the NHS? That doesn't sound like a very liberal thing to do. That sounds like a very opposite of liberal thing to do. Honestly, Ed Davies. The Lib Dems are just like... They're there just to rake in money from people who have fallen out of the Labour Party and fallen out with the Tory Party. So is the Green Party. The Green Party never comes up with any policies apart from anything to help trees. Like, they don't come up with any serious policies to win elections. They don't try and seriously win elections, and neither do the Lib Dems. They're literally there just as this little niche party to scrape in the voters that drop off from the other big two. They don't care about actually trying to make a difference. They just care about their membership getting paid. So they get paid. That's it. It's sick, all this, honestly. It makes me sick to my stomach how corrupt that room is. It is the most corrupt room in the UK.
Issue of illegal hair coursing. Criminal gangs are terrorising rural communities across our country, from Cambridgeshire to Devon, from Oxfordshire to Wiltshire. Men in balaclavas are threatening and abusing farmers as these criminals tear across their fields in 4x4s. Farmers are warning that it's only a matter of time before someone is killed.
He is right here. Farmers are one of the few people in the country who can carry an armed weapon because they need to use it for humane reasons to kill livestock. If a cow or a sheep was so badly injured that the humane thing to do is to end its life, or they need to protect their livelihood from predators or certain things like that, farmers are allowed with a license certain guns, air rifles, fucking hunting shotguns, that sort of thing. So it's only going to be a matter of time before some armed gang picks on the wrong farmer and the farmer fucking shoots them, and then the government tries to make out the farmer to be the enemy, but it's really because the country isn't safe and secure because the police have been underfunded so much they can't even enforce the law. That is the bottom line. These people in this room have failed so much that this has become a lawless country where the legal enforcement or law enforcement agency, the police, can't even enforce the law because they don't have the funding. Okay? That's how bad it is. And we're not talking about it, no. All everyone's talking about is immigrants. Fucking immigrants. Fuck's sake.
So does the Prime Minister agree with me that we must act urgently against this appalling criminality? And will he back our calls for a comprehensive rural crime strategy so we can not just stamp out hair coursing, but keep our rural communities safe from all crime?
Yeah. Prime Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to him for
more crime goes on in the country than in the city. People just don't know it.
Raising this important issue, and it is a matter of deep concern. We've already developing a rural crime strategy, but we'll happily work with him and others to develop it further.
Hopefully the SNP now.
Lawrence Turner.
Crime, and I pay horrendous police officer has been.
Sorry, dude. It might have been important, but this has been a long video, and I need to see what the SNP have to say. What's the dog doing? 1 second. Wait there. Okay, I can't just do what the SNP will. I can't check what the SNP is doing. I need to keep an eye on my dog. I'm going to end the video here. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye.